also how you as a person, and this is the thing that I love, authenticity, being genuine. I feel like you adjust to the guest.
Yo, this is actually I could do this.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this. But my thing is about my guests. I want them to put the most easiest thing for anyone to talk about, including myself, is.
Oh yeah.
So my
Get
job
me
is
rolling
to get
about
you
me.
talking about
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I sit back here like this. Content.
Yeah. That's it. All day.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I guess communication. I seen your TED Talk.
Right.
I mean, and I told you in the elevator up, man, like there's not a lot of communicators that grab me quick because, I'm not the most knowledgeable in it, but I can read things. Sometimes I can watch a pastor doing his thing and I'm like, I see what you're doing here.
Yeah.
From a communication standpoint, not always from the spiritual or the word standpoint. But I mean, first 5 seconds, man. And to me, that's huge. I'm into media. I love film.
Yeah.
You can grab someone in the first 5 seconds. That's not an easy task.
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult, especially a person that's like analyzing your work because they kind of know a little bit from what they do. Where does that come from with you? Like, were you always in communication?
I've been in communications my whole life. And so it's the maturation of everything that I've learned in that space. And when I say my whole life, I mean, I moved to Florida when I was in like 6th grade, right? In 7th grade, I was in the middle school library and the TV production teacher heard my voice. And my voice was just this deep in 7th grade. So she heard my voice and she was like, you're going to be in my TV production class next year. And I was like, all right. I didn't know. I was legit brand new in the school. I had been in the school for maybe 3 weeks. Wow. And I was like, all right, if you're going to put me in the class, you put me in the class. But prior to that, I had been in musical theater. I had been in chorus. I had always been a performer, right? And so when I moved into TV production, I took it as a form of performance, but I started learning the ways of communication. So I went in TV production in middle school. And then from there, I also did it in high school. I did internships at newspapers. And when I did the internship at the newspaper, I learned how to write so that people could grasp what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
And so people will tell me all the time, because I'll say the same thing 3 different ways, because I know there's 3 different people sitting there listening, and I need each one of them to have no bounds about what I'm trying to convey, right?
Right.
So I was in high school, I did my internship at the newspaper. Then I went back into broadcasting and worked at a local TV station. From there, I went back into acting as a murder mystery on a train, right? I was Dr. Claudius R. Pepper. Listen, all right, check this out, right? So I was Dr. Claudius R. Pepper, facilitator and purveyor of the most delectable and irrefutably delicious elixir of health and happiness ever formulated, right? That was like my stage line, my one line, yeah. And so, yeah, I played Dr. Pepper, and I sold this juice on this murder mystery. Sometimes I was the one that did it, sometimes I wasn't.
Right.
I moved from there, and I stayed in communication. So my next position was I was a resume writer. And so that brought me down the road of understanding where people came from in their lives, what they wanted to do in their lives, and then translating that into something that a hiring manager would grab their attention. In resume writing, that was the first place that I really learned how to grab somebody's attention from the jump. Because with a resume, that first 2 sentences has got to make you want to read the rest. These resumes are long, they're dense. People try to put everything they've ever done in them. And hiring managers are running through hundreds of these sometimes. So you've got to put something there that makes it jump out at the very beginning. I went from resume writing, and the whole writing communications thing kind of died down, and I found myself in marketing. So then I started designing websites, designing graphic design, things like that. And I started creating marketing messaging and starting out and building marketing strategies. So that was where I kind of developed the learning what makes people say yes, right?
Wow, yeah.
When you can learn what makes people say yes, you can get somebody talking enough to grab an understanding of who they are really quickly, so that you can maneuver the conversation into a direction that's going to make them say yes. It is a gold mine to have that ability, and that ability can be built, right?
Right.
So then went from marketing and strategy and all that kind of stuff, did that for a couple of years, built some websites, so I learned how people thought, what colors they responded to, you know, what kind of words made them, because, you know, in websites you have what's called call to actions.
Yeah.
So my job is to grab an understanding of what you want, right?
Right.
Lay it out in a way that makes it triggers an emotional response. So I want to say something that triggers an emotional response, but I want the emotional response to then trigger the action that I want you to take. And so I take you down this journey of triggering this emotional response. Now the emotional response has to be subtle enough so that it doesn't overwhelm you and pull you away from continuing down this website or whatever it is to give the action that I want you to give, right?
Right.
And then and not to say that during all of this time I spent time in radio, because I've been in radio for 20 years. So I was always having this conversation with people, right?
Right.
Radio, a lot of people don't understand, is a one-way conversation. So if I'm a talk radio host and you're in the car on the way home, I am having a one-sided conversation with you for 2 straight hours while you're driving home from work, or for an hour while you're driving home from work.
Yeah.
And I have to keep you captivated enough that and this is what I like to tell my clients, our job is to join the conversation you're already having in your head. Join that conversation and then start to steer it in a direction that makes you take a specific action, right? And so putting all of those things together, and then when I got to the TED Talk, it was just about putting all of that stuff together in action and writing a talk that would do the same thing, that would grab that attention. So if you notice, I started my TED Talk off with, let me paint you a picture. I told a story. I was very detailed in I was very detailed in the story. I set a dividing line of, this is the pastor, this is the business owner, which made you pick a side without realizing you was picking a side. Because when I set it up and then I told a little bit of story, then I gave the punchline and I said, one of them, basically the story is one of them thinks they have more influence than the other, right?
Right.
Everybody who hears that story thinks they know which one is the answer. They pick one, right?
That's that money conversation, man.
Yeah.
That money conversation, and I think that the money period from the pulpit, I think that creates a divide between people so hard. And not even in the sense of communicating, in the sense of like giving. Because when you hear money from the pulpit, a lot of times it's associated with tithing. And that right there is a draw between a lot of people. But I'm going to flip it on his head and say this right here. When it comes to now I don't know how people are going to receive this, but man, this is a sit down. Like a lot of people, when it comes to the church sometimes can be some of the biggest takers. Yeah. And the smallest givers.
Absolutely.
The church, I feel, and a lot of times, not every church, but just a lot of times, a lot of cases that you see, they monopolize a person's time to where it impedes on their ability to make money.
Right.
And now when money gets funny, the church says God's going to take care of it.
Right.
But God doesn't send money because that's not what God does.
That's not how he operates. Yeah. That's not how he operates.
But when you preach that and that becomes someone's theology, now God's going to provide, God's going to provide, God's going to provide, but you're sleeping on someone's couch.
Right.
You get someone that comes through and they give you $20 to make it to the next day. Oh, that's a blessing. Thank God. That's just another day.
Yeah.
You got a whole life to worry about. And now you got a family.
Yes.
But the church needs times because the church got to grow. And it gets so sticky.
But listen, it's because.
Do you want to have this conversation? It's a sticky one.
Listen, here's a good question. Why does the church have to grow?
Dang.
I would dare to challenge that the church doesn't have to grow, because the way we look at church, especially here in American society, we look at church as an institution. We don't look at church as what it really is. Church is not an institution. We look at church as an institution. We treat church like an institution. That's not what church is. You know what I'm saying? Church is a body of people who are focused on moving in a particular direction. That's all it is. And so I think part of the problem that we have with the church, or not the problem we have with the church, I think part of the problem we have with how we see church is that we have put way more responsibility on church than is necessary or that was ever designed. And so when natural disasters hit, you always hear people, the church should do this, or you got people in your church that's having a hard time, don't have a place to stay, and the church should do this and the church should do that. And I'm looking around and going, but bro, you the church. You the church, not this building, not this institution.
Yeah.
And so what happens is we've put that responsibility on this building, because I hear people say, the church is supposed to be the center of the community. Why?
Yeah.
When?
Wow.
At what point in time was the church called to be the center of the community?
Wow.
The church was called to preach the gospel, go into all the world, preach the gospel. If it's the center of a community, it's not able to go.
Right.
Because it's required to go into all the world and preach the gospel, right?
Yeah.
And so we put these responsibilities on the church that they have to take care of the sick. They have to take care of the shut-in. They have to house the homeless. They have to clothe the hurt, and the distressed, and all this other kind of stuff. But we're telling the building that they need to do that, right?
Right.
And it's not the way it's supposed to be. Anybody who's having problems in our community should be handled before the church before the institution of the church even finds out about it. Because you went and told the church. Why did you go tell the pastor? Why didn't you get 7 people who go to the church and go fix the problem? But because we put this extra responsibility on church, the church then starts to pull and ask and beg and plead and want more money and more time, because we got to build these programs, and we got to have the children's ministry, and we got to have this, and we got to have that. And y'all want us to be here on Easter, but you don't want us to be here too long. But I better make sure you able to look good and wear all the stuff you want to wear. And we've put that responsibility on the church. And then the church has turned around, and you get certain pastors who pop up and say, well, I want to be a part of that, because that's where the shine is. And that's where the influence is. And that's where the authority is. And while I do still care for the people in their souls, I want to direct how people move. One thing we should do more of as Christians, right, is let people fail. Period. Let people fail. Because Jesus let you fail all them times. Every single time you didn't listen to what he said, to what his word said, to what the prophet said, the pastor said, to what your mama said, to what your friend tried to tell you, to what that stranger that you didn't know came and told you something, and you heard it and you knew it was God telling you, and you did what you wanted to do anyway. He let you fail, and he didn't ridicule you for it. He didn't put you out for it. He brought you right back in as if nothing ever happened. And we don't do that.
He didn't sit you down.
No, he didn't sit you down at all.
I ain't quick to sit you down.
He didn't sit you down. But what we do in the church is we try to keep you from falling. But that's not what the word says. The word says, unto who that shall keep you from falling. It ain't the pastor that's going to keep you from falling. It is him, Elohim, the one that's going to keep you from falling. But no, we so busy trying to capture people and save people and rescue people and all this kind of stuff. And that's not to say that the church shouldn't do good works. But it's to say that the people in the church should be more focused on how the good works get done and allow the leaders to do just that, lead.
And I think on the tie into that too, all of those things take money.
Yes.
So
all
no
of
matter
it
how
take
you
money.
slice it,
You gonna need
this
some
is
money.
not a free. So I think in putting all this responsibility on God to be provider, basically what a husband is in a marriage situation, like that's, to me, it's reckless. And it's damaging.
It absolutely is.
It's damaging because you get a person that starts serving in the church in their teens and then college. And then they get out of college and now they're serving in the church. They have no financial